Okay, great. Let's get started. Thank you again for joining us today. We hope everyone is well, keeping safe and healthy. This is actually our 5th webinar now as part of our COVID-19 Human Impact series. We've looked so far at the impact of COVID-19 on people's mood, what this means for them, and what it means for brands as well at a time like this. We've also looked into different categories and different sectors, so into new healthcare routines, the impact on personal hygiene, and also how sort of eating habits are changing as a result. So we are actually going to be deep diving into different sectors each week. So do send us a message with your email address if you'd like to know more about any sort of future webinars and any that are coming up in the next few weeks. So I'll do a quick introduction for those who don't know me or haven't met me. My name is Vidisha. I lead the research and strategy team at Streetbees. I've sort of been involved heavily in the design and now the delivery of the COVID-19 Human Impact Tracker. And presenting alongside me today is Brian. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi everybody, I'm Global Strategy Director at Streetbees and will be supporting Vidisha in this webinar today.
Great. So just before we get into the webinar, a few sort of housekeeping guidelines. So you'll see the questions function that you can use to ask us any questions at any time. We will obviously get to as many as we can, but it's possible we won't be able to get through all of them. If that's the case, we will get back to you. Please do bear with us if there are any problems with the tech. We are still learning how to manage sort of these digital discussions at scale, and we will sort of resolve it as quickly as possible. Also, if you've had sort of colleagues who have not been able to attend, we can also share the webinar recording afterwards if you would like a copy of it. One final point is we are going to be going through our dashboard today. So it would be best if you if you are to follow to zoom in and use full screen mode so that you can see what we're taking you through. Great, so I'm going to start on our world map, and of those who have joined previous webinars will have seen this before, but it's always a good place to start to understand sort of, you know, how people are feeling, the state of mind across the world. So over here, you can see the global breakdown for mood. There is, you know, a fair bit of anxiety, but there is some positivity coming through as well. The color on each country that you see represents the most dominant sort of mood or emotional influence in that country. So on the US, you know, we see that they're pretty anxious right now, as is the UK, which are both sort of markets that are in the crux of things. Lockdowns continue, and the sort of cases and death rate is still high. Interestingly, we see then India, another sort of negative feeling, but a different one, which is all around feeling scared and paranoid. What we see in India actually is quite a high concern around germs, which also, in fact, you know, what we've seen when we've looked at the personal care session is that it also leads to them sort of showering and bathing more. So there's a lot of concern around a fear of germs, and that leads to differing sort of personal hygiene behaviours. We're also going to take a look at how this influences their home care and home cleaning behaviours. Sort of, we see like Germany and France are still are actually moving more into the positive. As you know, with Germany, we know that the situation there, the communication, how it's being handled, it's very different, and actually that influences how people respond to it as well. Similarly, like with China, we're seeing more positivity coming through. You know, as things are progressing there, the sort of number of cases decreasing, and the isolation measures have been easing. People are sort of, you know, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Going to move into our fear index now. So what we're also measuring, as well as sort of the impact on the on people's mood, is to understand how afraid people are. And we're looking at this. This is over the last 2 weeks, and we're looking at this by country. The way this is calculated is that it's asked on a scale, and we're looking at the percentage of people who are afraid minus those who are not afraid. We see that fear levels, are remaining high for the European countries, the US and India. So you can see here, we can also see that fear levels are high in Japan still. But, what we see in China is quite an interesting one, because as we saw that the mood is moving more into positivity, but fear levels remain fairly high. People continuing to be vigilant, and this is not something that will sort of dissipate quickly. So while it is having a better impact on their mood, they are still very cautious and feeling fairly afraid of the situation. South Korea is one where we're actually seeing lower levels of fear, and that's, I think, generally the situation there has been handled very differently, and it's been fairly stabilized as well. And that's why we're sort of seeing a difference here. And Germany, again, we're seeing that it's lower compared to the other European markets, but that actually ties in fairly well with the mood there as well. I think there is a general sentiment there that people are less afraid because the situation is just being handled better. I'm going to hand over to Brian, actually, because Brian, it would be great if you can tell us if there is a link between sort of what we see here in the fear levels and how it's sort of impacting people's sort of purchase and consumption behaviors.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Over the course of this pandemic, we've noticed that there's a really strong correlation between the strength of the fear index and what people are purchasing. So what we're going to have a quick look at now is called the category purchase index, which is on our next tab. And similar to how the fear index is calculated, this shows the percentage increasing purchase minus the percentage decreasing purchase. And this is from the consumers claiming themselves. So what it's important to say at this point is that we're not capturing volume here. What we're capturing is the change in consumer demand relative to other categories. And as we see, as the fear index is quite high across the world right now, we're seeing the strongest categories that people are purchasing more of are long-lasting food items, which of course makes sense, but actually second is cleaning products and third is personal hygiene products. So these categories are linked very strongly to the fear index, and as people are feeling quite stressed and anxious, they're going out and purchasing these categories, and we see that follow through to usage as well, which we'll be looking at in a few minutes. Which is also something else that's also interesting is to look down the bottom end of the graph and look at categories that are actually being purchased significantly less because of this. So people, obviously it's been a huge economic impact and many millions of people are furloughed or have lost their jobs, and so discretionary spending on certain categories has come down as well. So clothing, beauty, electronics and entertainment is all down. So again, intrinsically linked to the fear index, people are cutting down on their discretionary spending, and then as we saw at the other end, increasing their consumption and purchasing of those categories. One thing that's been a bit of a buzzword as the pandemic has caught on is stockpiling. So we're going to have a quick look at the stockpiling graph, and it's probably being one of the most widely reported elements of COVID-19, and primarily down to the great photos it offers in supermarkets. But since the global peak, which happened kind of mid-March to the start of April, this last week we've seen a significant decrease of about 15% globally in consumers saying that they're stockpiling. So people are still stockpiling, but much less so than they have been. And we're seeing this come through in some of the comments, and that what we're seeing is that people are adjusting to the new cadence and rhythm of life under lockdown. So people are shopping less frequently, but few of them are actively stockpiling. And there's more frequent availability of food and those goods that we saw that are in high demand in supermarkets. Supermarkets are also catching up with the increase in demand as their manufacturers, and items are beginning to be in stock more often, and some of the purchase limits on various different categories have eased the out of stocks as well. Looking at what people are actually stockpiling, it's generally food and long-lasting groceries, as well as the perennial favourite of toilet paper, which globally across the world is still one of the most stockpiled things. When it comes to home care products, we see that people are stockpiling various different cleaning products, disinfectants, and also laundry detergent quite prominently. And when we've looked at these products' availability, these are categories actually that have been in stock with low levels out of stock, so consumers have been able to find them. One more interesting point on stockpiling before we move on is that it can be sometimes misdefined, and consumers even themselves define what stockpiling is through our qualitative data, and it's not the vision of people leaving the supermarket with trolleys stacked high full of dry goods and toilet paper. Rather, it's consumers buying a little more of what they usually would more often. They're buying larger formats, or generally they're adding to their basket one or two additional SKUs. So you can see from the first quote, someone saying, I wouldn't call it stockpiling. They have a 16-pack of loo roll, and normally they buy them in 4 packs when they're needed. So people are just buying more of what they usually buy, and this knock-on impact of a huge amount of people doing that is what's leading to the empty shelves. So quite interesting that stockpiling, the definition of it isn't necessarily what the reality is. So I think, Vidisha, we're going to have a quick look at the home care purchase index.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Stockpiling.
Yeah. So looking at the home care category in particular, what we've done here in our dashboard is actually take a look across some European markets where we're seeing differences. So generally across these markets, which are Italy, the UK, Germany, and France, we're seeing a significant increase in disinfectant, disposable wipes, alcohol spray, rubber gloves, and bleach. The red bar being Italy, and where the fear level is highest at the moment, we're seeing a correlation with that fear index again, and the quantity of products being bought by that particular market. Again, as kind of Vidisha mentioned, the fear index, Germany is feeling generally more positive about COVID-19, as their government and country's reaction to it has been quite good, and as a result, we're seeing Germany as a country purchasing less of these various different products apart from disinfectant. So we can even see when it comes to bleach this week, there's been a slight decrease in demand for it. So what we're seeing, and I'm going to ask Vidisha to have a look at this, is that people's mindset and concern around germs is really influencing what they're purchasing and what they're looking at. And maybe we could have a look at that, Vidisha.
Yep, absolutely. I'm just going to move to it now. So here I'm going to keep looking at Germany, but I'm going to now compare it to India and the US to see some sort of difference in behaviors. So this is the chart here, which is showing the level of concern around germs. The green is low, yellow is medium, and red is high. So you see Germany generally has a low concern around germs, while the US is sort of in between, and India is very high. Now, if we look at the charts next to it, we see similar patterns in how their home cleaning frequency is changing and whether it's having an impact on their cleaning routine. So similarly, like Germany is saying that they're cleaning their homes around the same amount, whereas in India we're seeing a big spike in people saying that they're cleaning more frequently, and also in the US to some degree. And again, we're seeing a similar pattern here in whether it's impacting their cleaning routines. It's less likely to impact Germany versus the other two countries. So it's quite interesting that this sort of level of concern around germs is really driving how it's tied with fear, of course, and it is really sort of linked with how it's impacting behaviours. So I'm going to sort of go in a bit more detail now into those sort of changes in behaviour. I'm going to focus now on the US, which is the market which was kind of in the middle. And what we see here is that there is actually more. What people are saying they're doing is not just more regular cleaning, but more extensive cleaning. and also seeing a greater use of products. And actually, when we actually come onto it in a few more minutes, we're actually seeing a huge variety of products being used, which is coming through in this chart too. When we look at specific products that people are mentioning on this chart, we're really seeing stronger products known to kill germs, like bleach, like disinfectants, like antibacterial wipes and sort of spray as well. So it's not just a matter of more products, but we're also seeing stronger products. And the reason we're seeing this is that we're sort of seeing a shift, that it's no longer just a matter of cleaning and keeping your homes tidy, but it's really about sanitizing. People are increasingly conscious about their environments and taking preventative measure. I'm going to scroll down and just take a look at this quote here from a consumer in the US, which really summarizes what's going on. This one here, it's I've sanitized till my hands hurt. And they're going into detail around everything they're doing around their home, like nothing gets brought into this house without being wiped down first. And I think this is really quite key, that people's behaviors have sort of gone to an extreme in that case. And it's not just about sort of, like I said, cleaning, it's now around taking preventative measures. So I think, this gives you a good idea generally what people are doing and what people are saying they're doing, and how it's having an impact on their sort of cleaning habits and behaviors. But Brian, do you want to sort of take a look into how it's sort of what people are doing in the moment?
Yeah, so thanks, Judy. I think one of the things that's very interesting about what we capture is that we capture in the moment behavior. So when consumers are going to clean, they're logging this behavior and kind of sharing their thoughts with us about what they're doing. So if we move into that tab there, there's some interesting things that are coming across. Next one, yeah. So these are moments when people are actually cleaning their homes, and the first thing we generally ask them is, what are you cleaning and what part of your home are you cleaning? And globally, it's quite interesting to see that the kitchen, the bathroom, and the bedroom are the three most cleaned areas of people's homes, then followed by floors and the living room. So people are focusing on the areas that they live in and use the most, which isn't really a change. But when we move down a little bit, what we're beginning to see is a vast array of products are now being used by consumers. So previously, before COVID-19, they might be using one product to clean specific areas, but now they're using a selection of products, and they're also kind of using products that they feel are complementary to each other. So we're going to take a really quick look at a picture from France. Where a consumer is using, bleach, but they're also using a more natural product such as this alcohol vinegar as well. So they're combining products to help aid efficacy to combat the bacteria, the bacteria and COVID-19 virus. So people are really paying more attention to what they're using. So it's quite interesting. And when we ask people what they're doing differently, they're saying they're cleaning more regularly, they're cleaning more extensively, and they're using more products, which is all coming across in these logs. And I think we can talk about it, but it's really the consumer's voice that brings this to life. And on the right here, you'll see a quote from a consumer in Italy, where they say, "Before I relied almost exclusively on the robot vacuum cleaner. Occasionally I wash the floors with steam. Now I've stepped up the cleaning. Before steaming, I sprayed the detergent on the floor. I also disinfect some surfaces. And I try to compartmentalize the house. I change shoes and clothes in the entrance area. I also tend to avoid uncooked food myself and clothes more often if applicable." So people are really changing their behaviors. They're thinking a lot more about what they're doing and how they're cleaning. And this is something that we think is going to stick. So when we scroll down just to the next chart, we see the key drivers for these change in habits. And as we can see, the top driver for people making the change is around the virus, about killing viruses, bacteria, and germs, and avoiding infection and disease. So COVID-19 is definitely driving this behavior. And I guess the question that everybody has and our clients are asking at the moment is, are these habits going to become permanent? And across other categories, we think that some of the things that we're seeing are being enforced by things like the lockdown. But if we scroll down to the next question, where we're asking people about the change, what we see in home care is that I think it's 84% of people are saying that they are going to keep these changes to the routine and how they clean. And when we ask them why, you'll see in the right hand side is that of the top 3 reasons, the first one is to keep the home clean and tidy. They're actually learning and continuing to want to keep their home clean and tidy because they've become more accustomed to it. The second one is around avoiding germs, bacteria and viruses. But the third one is actually it's a habit that they are becoming accustomed to, and a good habit at that. So whilst we see the virus is driving a lot of the new behavior, we're not seeing it as the primary driver of behavior post the pandemic. So this is something, and particularly in home cleaning, these habits will stick. So we think this is really, really interesting. And could be part of the new normal. And I think the next bit, it'd be great for Isha if we can talk about it a bit, is what do consumers want to hear from brands at this time?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that in this category, in home care and cleaning, that people's behaviours are likely to actually shift in the longer term, as they're learning about how to avoid, are more conscious of germs and how to prevent them and avoid them and kill them. They're also more enjoying the new habits that they're forming, and they're thinking at their as a longer term measure to maintain them. So I think what they want to know from brands right now is around, really, it's around efficacy. I think what's really on top of mind for people is how do we combat the germs and bacteria in our house to help us to build up our immunity, but also to prevent us from contracting the virus from things we may be bringing into the home. So as you look at this chart here, the effectiveness of the product is the top one. We do have how to kill viruses and germs and bacteria. Again, protection against them. People are also wanting to hear from brands like, which are the best products to use? How do I use these products as well? Like the different methods of cleaning and disinfecting. So there is really a role here for brands to really educate consumers and speak to them about the products, how effective their product is, how to kill viruses and germs, the types of products, which products are complementary, the different techniques and the right way to use the products as well. I think this is really important, and this can really help them become a trusted advisor and really tap into that emotional side and help alleviate some of that anxiety and fear that germs cause. I think there is a point that we do need to be a bit more cautious, in that for some people are saying it may not be as relevant for home brands to communicate. So the way the communication is done is really quite important, and it shouldn't be seen to be sort of taking advantage of the situation. And I think the other side is that, as people are buying stronger products, are combining products, creating their own sort of hybrid products, people really need to be told about the effect on their health in terms of toxicity levels. So it's really key to sort of educate, not just around how to combat the COVID-19, but also around how to do it safely. So I think there is a real role that brands can play in this space to really connect with the consumers. Great. Should we take a few? Seems we have a little bit of time. Should we take a few questions? So we've got a question around laundry, actually. Why are people sort of stockpiling in laundry? Well, what we see in laundry is that while we're not focusing on it in this home care section, we actually have a completely different deep dive into laundry. It's similar, like we saw some of the consumers talking about it. People are not re-wearing clothes as much. So people are coming, especially pre like extensive lockdowns, we saw people coming home, taking off their clothes in markets like China as they stepped into the house, and actually washing them immediately. So people actually stopped buying more detergent as well as cleaning products, because they're actually washing their clothes more regularly as well. So and not just clothing, it's actually also their sheets, towels, all of that, anywhere that sort of the bacteria could live is being washed and addressed. Let's see if there's any other questions. Does the number of users reflect the number of people surveyed? Yes, so we have two different samples. We have what we see here, which is logs. This is based on the number of occasions. So as Brian mentioned, we capture in the moment behavior. So in the moment behavior, a person can log in the space of a month, could log twice, for example. So that's why we capture that in the logs. And then on a previous chart, we were looking at, if I can find it, probably earlier. So, we've got sample size by users as well. So where you see sort of differences in sample size by users is because some of our questions are new to the study. Some of them are only asked of the certain users. So that's why we have sort of two different sample sizes. And we have a question here as well. There's been a sort of a shift towards more natural, more environmentally friendly cleaning products. How do we see this focus shifting as a result of COVID-19? I mean, some of what we've just looked at in terms of people's behavior changing right now in terms of products, people are not actually mentioning so much around natural. Interestingly, the focus now is really around stronger products with high efficacy. And that doesn't mean it can't be natural, but what people's attention is shifting to is efficacy, is that sort of antibacterial property, sanitizing property. So they will look for things like, kills 99.9%. We saw a quote actually, kills 99.9% of bacteria. So people are really picking up on those cues on packaging, because that is what what is top of mind for them. Great. I think we're sort of coming to the end of our time. So unfortunately, I can't take any more questions, but we are keeping a log of the questions coming in and who's asking them, so we can come back to you on that. Just to sort of wrap up, I guess, I think I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. I know everyone is incredibly busy. And I know it's a very chaotic time, so we do appreciate you joining us today. If there is another category like laundry or another area you would like us to talk about, please again write in the chat box and we can see about scheduling a webinar for it. As I mentioned, we are going to be following up on the questions and we can also share a recording of the webinar if that would be helpful. So yeah, thank you again, and sort of stay safe, stay healthy, and please stay at home. Thank you.